नमस्कारम सभी लोगों नमस्कारम good morning vanakkam today we are commemorating Kishen a socialist who contributed fundamentally to the socialist path after Dr. Lohia and Sachidananda Sinha. He born in Odisha and he had his MA literature, English literature from the Nagpur University, and he joined the Socialist Party. Later, in the split took place in the Socialist Party, he joined when joined as the executive editor of the Mankind, a magazine Dr. Lohia started after he was expelled from the Praja Socialist Party and formed Socialist Party. The headquarters of the Lohia's party and the magazine Mankind and Hindi JanParishad Jan were at Hyderabad. As an executive editor, he stayed in Hyderabad. When he came to Kerala, I took him to Sri Manikilath. At that time, he was alive also. And Manikilath was the General Secretary of the Socialist Party. And a team of youngsters, including Sachidananda Sinha, stayed in Hyderabad. And Kishenji and Manikilath shared their experiences and good days in that time. Kishen Pattanayak elected as a Lok Sabha member from the Sambalpur constituency in Odisha in 1962. Until that time, the Lok Sabha or Parliament was not have discussion about the Indian poor, Indian farmers. Everybody was speaking about the socialism or capitalism or whatever it is. And Kishen Pattanayak, under the leadership of Dr. Lohia, who also joined Lok Sabha in a by-election, Mathuli Mai, Maniram Bagri, etc. These youngsters with Dr. Lohia, they changed, a radical change in the discussions of Dr. Lohia. Everybody knows the great debate on the income of the poor Indian and the expenditure of the Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. 25,000 rupees was the expenditure per day, security expenditure for the Jawaharlal Nehru. But 3 annas were the income of the common people per day. That discussion actually capable to open the eyes of the common people. With a small party, Dr. Lohia began, but in 1967, he changed Indian political scene. The monopoly of the Congress power. First time in India, 9 states have lost Congress, and they almost on the verge of a collapse at the center also. But Dr. Lohia died in 1967. After Dr. Lohia's death, the Socialist Party, almost a faction fight take place in the Socialist Party. One group led by Mathuli Mai, another group mainly a rural uh, background, Rajnarayan came into existence. But several of Dr. Lohia's followers did not take interest in the faction fight. And Kishen Pattanayak was one of the main leader in that group. In 1967, he was the president of the Samajwadi JanParishad, national president. And in 1974, the party was split up into two factions, Rajnarayan faction and Mathuli faction. Kishen Pattanayak, Om Prakash Deepak, Indumati Kelkar, Ram Iqbal Barsi, etc. They did not join any of the groups. And they engaged Karpuri Thakur to mediate and to come together the factions. But he later joined, he did, on the mediation time itself, he joined Rajnarayan. So this group, they formed Lohya Vichar Vedi, Lohya Vichar Manch at the national level. And in 1980, Kishen Pattanayak realized that instead of Lohya Vichar Vedi, a complete total political organization was necessary. And in 1980, he formed the Samta Sanghatan. He took initiative to form the Samta Sanghatan in Bengaluru. And then, after some years of experience of working at the ground level, the Samta Sanghatan has a debate on the foreign funding NGOs. And everybody wanted to avoid foreign funding because since it is a design of the multinationals. And that debate caused a split in the Samta Sanghatan. A small faction, but very good leaders went out of the Samta Sanghatan. And then Kishenji realized that a people's political movement only he formed Jasasa, Janandol Samini Samadhi. And various people's movements were there in that Janandol Samini Samadhi. Later on, the Janandol Samini Samadhi decided to form a party, and Samajwadi JanParishad was formed in 1st January 1995 for a new and alternative socialist politics. Various people's movements were behind the formation of the Samajwadi JanParishad. And until his death, he was with Samajwadi JanParishad. He has many contributions, political contributions in thought and action. He is one of the main architects of the unity of the people's movements and the political direction. He has actually given new direction to the politics. Instead of established parties, a new path he has brought up and a political line in tune with that path. Today is his death anniversary, and today we are commemorating Kishen Pattanayak. Today we are fortunate to have some prominent Kishen Pattanayak disciples we are talking here. Ravivarma Kumarji was one of the foremost activist of Samajwadi Sabha, and he is a co-founder of Karnataka Rajya Rayyat Sangha, Karnataka Samsthana Karshaka Sangham. Professor Nanjundaswamy is well known among the farmers' movements and the people in Karnataka. A team of young socialists were the founders of that Karnataka Rayyat Sangha. Ravivarma Kumarji was one of the co-founders of Karnataka Rayyat Sangha. He is a practicing advocate. He is a senior advocate in Supreme Court and Karnataka High Court. He is actually the first backward classes commission chairman, and he was the Advocate General of Karnataka, and furthermore he is director of Lohia Samada Vidyalaya Tumour. He will speak first 15 minutes about Kishen Pattanayak, and then Arvind Mohan, he is one of the main disciple of Dr. Kishen Pattanayak. He acted as the full-timer of Samta Sanghatan and acted as the editor of Samayik Varta. Even now it is publishing. Pattanayak was the founder editor. Later he joined media. He was an former executive. He was an executive editor of the Amar Ujala, various newspapers. Professor in Jagran Institute of Management, former editor of CSDS, editor at CSS, former development editor at Hindustan. He was working with Hindustan newspaper for a long time. Former senior sub-editor at India Today Group, former sub-editor at Janata, and he was from the undivided Bihar state. He now is very active in the field of writing on the present and the history of the socialist movement. He actually completed the uncompleted biography of Dr. Lohia, which was written by Om Prakash Deepak. Om Prakash Deepak is considered to be a very great leader, and he was the editor of Jan, the Hindi magazine of Dr. Lohia. But he could not complete his biography of Dr. Lohia before his death. Untimely he died, and it was not completed for a long time. And some years ago, Arvind Mohanji completed the biography of Dr. Lohia, written by Om Prakash Deepak. He used to write about the socialist movement and the past and present events. He is a very well-known speaker also. Then we will have the presence of Pritish Acharya, professor. He is a professor at Regional Institute of Education, Bhubaneswar, NCRT's Regional Institute of Education, and he also actually he was also a student at the time of the Suniji, Jasveer Singh ji, Lingaraj Pradhan ji, Yogendra Yadav were studying in Jawaharlal Nehru University. At that time it was very, very big. a very big student movement there. And Pritish Acharya, Pritish is staying at Sambalpur, and he also worked as a professor at Aishwal University and Utkal University also. These three people are speaking about Kishanji for 15 minutes each. Today, the program had to be inaugurated by Lingaraj Asadji, the national president of Samajwadi JanParishad, but he is not well. He is sick, so he could not join. Let us start our program with a speech of Ravivarma Kumarji. I am inviting Ravivarma Kumarji. Please initiate your speech. Ravivarma Kumarji, you are welcome to start your speech. Chakundi.
Hello. 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 Am I audible? Hello. 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 Hello, Mr. Jacob. Am I audible? I'm not hearing you. I don't know. Hello. Hello. Hello.
You are audible, Ravivarma Kumarji. You are audible. You are audible. Please start your speech. Ravivarma Kumarji.
I profusely hello hello hello. So, friends, good morning to everybody. Sorry for the technical snag. I was able to, I was not able to listen to most of what Joshi ji said. Be that as it may, now that you are able to hear me, let me pay my tributes to Mr. Kishen Pattanayak. Uh, Perhaps this is the most appropriate time when we should have started this discussion. So I profusely congratulate uh, my learned friend Mr. Joshi Jacob and his comrades for getting up this wonderful webinar online discussion on Kishanji. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to pay my tributes to Kishanji. Uh, Perhaps the relevance of Kishanji is more than ever before. I'll just give you a story. Kishanji gave us in his last lecture in Karnataka. This was held just a few days before his death, and it was in one of the most backward districts of the country, Chamrajnagar. He was addressing students on the need for one standard in education, and in that study camp, he impressed upon the need for the students and the youths to become foot soldiers of socialism. And he started with a story. He told about the rats, the mice. We see rats all around, and he asked the students, have you seen a fat rat and have you seen a lean rat? Students said no. Then he asked them to remember the street dogs. He asked them, is there a fat dog? Is there a lean dog? Students said no. In simple words, he said, this is all what is socialism. That everyone will get what is due to them and nobody will be deprived of his food or his needs at the cost of by anybody else. And that is what, simple terms, what is socialism. And today, when liberalization, globalization, and privatization has played a havoc on the nation, and the COVID pandemic has only brought it to the surface, and the untold misery and hardship the labor went through during this period is by itself a testimony to the hazards of capitalism for this country. Kishenji was a relentless fighter and an evergreen optimist. I very distinctly remember when he was called upon to speak after the disintegration of socialist bloc, when the whole world was celebrating the so-called death of socialism, Kishenji told us that socialism is not dead, but on the other hand, this is a greater, the time is more relevant for socialism, more appropriate for socialism than ever before. And he went on to highlight the ills of capitalism, how poverty, famine, unemployment, hunger, these things will increase and result in starvation, death. And of all the people, Kishenji was more familiar with starvation deaths because in his hometown, Kalindi, there has been a perennial drought and people are dying in numbers. So, he being aware of it, he has always taken up the cause of socialism in every platform and has been had been ushering in socialism in a big way. Kishenji was also a great parliamentarian. A great parliamentarian, I'll give you just two anecdotes about Kishenji, about his parliamentary skills. One was when the education minister, a former illustrious Chief Justice, Mr. MC Chagla, was the education minister, and Chagla questioned the participation of students in politics and said it is not appropriate and it should not be allowed. Kishenji was very young at that time, very, very young. And Chagla was a very big figure, a mighty figure. And without being overwhelmed by that fact, Kishenji took on Chagla and asked Chagla, told the parliament that Gandhiji and Nehru have convincingly answered this question as to why there is need for students' participation in politics. So he said, I'm not going to dwell on it. But the most appropriate question today would be not whether the students should participate in politics, but whether judges and ex-judges should be allowed to participate in politics. What will be the credibility of judiciary if a man like Chagla is allowed to become a minister immediately after his retirement? He retorted. Chagla's face immediately shrunk, and he sat down dumbfounded without being in a position to answer. So that's the sharpness with which Kishenji was able to corner the high and mighty, even on the floor of the house. Another anecdote is about what I told you about the starvation deaths. So Kishenji moved a very important question on the death of on the starvation deaths that were taking place in Odisha. And the Minister for Agriculture was none other than C. Subramaniam. C. Subramaniam was totally unable to answer the questions put by Kishenji. And he made a very interesting statement. He said, the famine, this is what he said. I'll just quote what Mr. Subramaniam said. He said that the policy which was prevalent during the Britishers' time, namely the famine code, has been scrapped. Then Kishenji retorted saying that if you have stopped such a humanitarian program for the victims of drought and famine, what is your alternative? Then the government was unable to answer. They were cornered. They were put to shame. And when it became very difficult for him to answer, C. Subramaniam did not even turn up in the house, but he sent his junior minister, who was trying to say that this is not what the minister said. He did not mean that the famine code has been discontinued, but he went on to explain that it has been taken over by the states, etc., etc. Then Kishenji asked, if he does not Kishenji, it was Madhurimaya who asked, if your minister does not know what is the meaning of scrapping, better ask him to stop speaking in English. This is what he said. And that gave rise to this thing where an attempt was made to get Kishenji suspended from the house. So I'm just giving you these examples. Not only that, Kishenji was a great activist. And Kishenji, as an activist, went around the whole country, mobilizing the youths, the students, women, Dalits, and farmers. And above all, while Lohiya was recognized as an iconoclast, Kishenji was recognized as a peacemaker, as a bridge between organizations, as a bridge between NGOs and movements, as a bridge between the Dalits and the farmers. And this is the great contribution of Kishenji. He was an advisor in Karnataka for two great movements. One was the movement for social justice, ushered in by the Karnataka Dalita Sangharsha Samiti. The other was uh, a, a movement for equality between villages and cities, ushered in by Karnataka Rajya Right Sangha. He was a very frequent visitor, and I am very happy and proud to tell you, soon after Samta Sanghatan's inauguration, to which our friend Joshy ji just now referred, Kishen ji was here in Bangalore to inaugurate the first Ramanor Lohia Samta Vidyalaya, which was the dream of Dr. Lohia, realized only in Karnataka and nowhere else. On a 50-acre plot, he inaugurated the Lohia Samta Vidyalaya to train the cadres. And I am very happy and proud to tell you this institute has been training Dalits and farmers since 1981, March 23rd, 1981, Kishenji inaugurated it. He had even promised to spend at least 4 months a year in this school, but for one or the other reason, this could not be implemented. Be that as it may, the dream of Dr. Lohia was realized, and Kishenji was one of its trustees till his death. Not only that, as an activist, he had piloted a public interest litigation, which is reported in the year 1989. It's a reported judgment in all the leading journals of law journals. Kishen Pattanayak versus Union of India is the title of is the citation, which was decided in '89. He brought to the notice of the court the continued deaths, starvation deaths that were taking place in Odisha, particularly in Bolangir and Kalindi. In a matter of 10 days, over 15 children had died during that time. So this was brought to the notice of these people, the court, and the court monitored the ameliorative measures that were taken by Orissa government and the union government. And finally, only after it was satisfied, yes, enough measures have been taken, Kishenji was permitted to rest and allow the petition to be withdrawn. As a great socialist ideologue, Kishenji was always a very brilliant orator who was able to motivate the youths and the students. And I'm extremely happy and proud of our association with Kishenji, and more importantly, the seeds of socialism he has sown in Karnataka, they are now flourishing as great movements in the Dalits movement and the farmers movement, apart from other activities which he had participated. Last but not the least, I should remember uh, uh, Kishen Pattanayak's great association with me, my family, my wife Sharda, my children Abhi Mandela and Pelli. He was kind enough to accept the children's invitation and come and stay with us at home. One day when he was with us, my son was very severely ill, suffering from diarrhea. And Kishenji noticed that I was in a state of depression after seeing the child suffering like that. The child was hardly, I think, 3 years or 4 years. Not even 3 years, not even 3 years. Kishenji asked that I am worried. Yes, I said I am worried, Kishenji. What is this? The child is suffering like this. How many times should it pass the motion? And this is not good for the child. I didn't know because I had taken him to doctor. The child was not able to recover fast. So that was the state of depression in which I was placed. Then Kishenji spoke to me at length and finally gave me the courage, saying that this is the hallmark of a genius. Every genius will suffer such bouts of illness, and you need not get worked up on that. That is what he said. He said he himself has undergone such a period, and that is so. This was a very encouraging thing, and it definitely enlivened me and took me out of the depression. The other personal experience I should share with you is about the study camps we were holding in Samta Vidyalaya. In one such study camp, Kishenji had conducted very interesting programs uh, to to uh, attract the farmers to the movement, and we had launched a great movement known as Granite Movement, that is against privatization of the mountains by cutting by allowing the quarrying of granite in those mountains. So at that point of time, at one point of time, the uh, the food served included non-vegetarian items. Kishen took very serious exception for serving non-veg food on the campus of Samta Vidyalaya. So we had a very, you know, big debate, and Kishenji disagreed with me. I told Kishenji that by asking everyone to become vegetarians on the campus, you are imposing a vegetarian culture on others. There should be freedom of food. The participants should have the liberty to take their choice of food. And when majority of them opted for non-vegetarian, there is nothing wrong if non-vegetarian food is served. However, he did not agree, so we had a bitter fight. And finally, I put him in the train to Bhubaneswar. And 5 days later, I received a letter saying that, Ravi, I thought over the matter. Throughout the journey, this issue was haunting me. I finally agree to your argument that culture should not be imposed, especially minority culture should not be imposed on the majority. He agreed and he said there is nothing wrong in serving non-vegetarian food on the campus. Last but not the least, I should remember a great uh, personal favor done to me by Kishen Pattanayak. Those days I was smoking a lot, and Kishenji would see that and he would ask me when I'm going to quit smoking. He said a good socialist can never be a smoker. He gave the example of Dr. Lohia, how he gave up smoking, etc., etc. Okay, then uh, August 15th, 2004, that was our last meeting. Just before he left, I was sitting on the dais, presiding over a function which he had inaugurated. He left for Hyderabad. Before going to Hyderabad, he called me out from the dais and asked me, "When are you quitting? When are you quitting smoking?" He said, "Kishenji, give me some time. every time I would ask for 2 years and I would ask for a further extension. Asked for 2 years. And next month, September, in September, Kishenji was no more. So on the day I went to pay my last respects, I kept up my word to Kishenji. I have not touched cigarette after paying my last respects to Kishenji and participating in his funeral. So this is Kishenji. Day in and day out, we remember our association. We remembered the pearls of wisdom he has given us, and I hope and wish his memory will cherish and ignite a new movement to bring in youths and students, women, Dalits, and farmers to launch a very serious socialist movement. This is the right time, at a time when capitalism has played a havoc on the country and has seriously jeopardized the life and liberty of the masses of the nation, and enriched the Ambanis, Adanis, Tatas, and Birlas. They have never suffered during pandemic. The people who suffered are the working class. So therefore, this is the most appropriate time for remembering Kishenji and to launch a movement to restart a socialist movement throughout the country. So thank you very much for giving me such a patient listening. Wish this uh, discussion a great success. Thank you.
Very great speech on the Kishenji and a tribute to him. Actually, he enlightened the viewers and paid a very great tribute as he has recalling his personal experience with Kishenji and the parliamentary experiences of Kishenji is enlightening the people today itself, today also. Thank you. Thank you. Chakune. Hello. The next speaker is Arvind Mohanji. Arvind Mohanji. നീ എവിടെ പോയതാ? Hello. The next speaker is Arvind Mohanji. Ravivarma Kumarji made a very great tribute to Gandhi, Kishen Pattanayak. Now Arvind Mohanji will speak. He is a senior journalist. I told initially. എടാ ചാകുണ്ണിയേ, hello, Arvind Kumarji. Arvind, hello. Then Arvind Mohanji is not seen joined. So kindly Pritish Acharya, Professor Pritish Acharya ji to start. Kindly.
Thank you. Thank you, Joshy Jacobji, for organizing this meeting. Am I audible? Say on 27th September 2004, Kishen Pattanayak passed away in Bhubaneswar. I was here in Bhubaneswar when he passed away in the hospital, and after that, regularly such meetings are held on the day of his death. Today, also in Bhubaneswar and in Borgad, such meetings are held despite the corona pandemic. I was inquiring from Borgad that they are expecting not a very big crowd because of the corona thing, but some people will be gathering to say commemorate this and discuss this. I have earlier attended meetings in Borgad where say large number of people, a big gathering takes place to discuss about Kishanji and his politics on the day of his death. Generally, birthday is celebrated, but in Kishanji's case, since the since 2004, the day of his death is say uh, not celebrated, but is remembered when say, we discuss about Kishanji and uh, his ideas and thoughts. In this 15 days presentation, I would talk about my relationship, how I got attracted to him, and probably uh, many of you, or probably all of you, know Kishanji, as Ravivarma Kumarji had been saying, that how he gave up cigarette after say coming in contact with Kishanji. He had been in contact with Kishanji, but he had given a promise to Kishanji, and then after his death he left cigarette. So let me begin. Uh, my father Hemachandra Acharya was a close colleague of Kishan Babu or Kishen Pattanayak or Kishanji in the SSP, Sanjukta Socialist Party, since the early 60s. My father had resigned from his government service to join the SSP. He had contested the assembly elections in 1967 when, after winning the first MP election for the first time in 1962, Kishanji had also been contesting for the second time. My father, along with Kishanji, had lost the election in 1967, and after that, my father decided to live on agriculture in his parental village, where we all remained, stayed. With a large family to support, my father could not afford to be a full-time activist of the party, but his socialist activities and friendship with Kishanji continued unabated until his death in 2009. Never had he repented for taking such a decision. Never did he leave Kishanji and socialism till his death. Further, never did he blame, that is very important, never did he blame Kishanji for motivating him to join the Socialist Party. This was surprising to all of us in the family. I was only a toddler, 3 years and 3.5 years old, when my father quit the job, but the deteriorating economic condition of the family and say the uh, situation in which we all had been depending on agriculture, say this had left a deep impression on me. Suddenly, from a very affluent family with a secured source of income, we had been reduced to a ordinary agriculturalist family with all kinds of economic hardships inherent in rural India. I often wondered what magical power this man, Kishanji, had to convert my father, who was a poet in his own right and not a simpleton by any standard. Secondly, because of this friendship, Kishanji had been a regular visitor to our village. He used to have meetings in the village on a very regular basis. Whenever he would come to Odisha, then Samalpur would be a place where he would be reaching, and from there, very often he used to come to our village. But in the village, the night stay or night halting would be in our home, village home. He was a close friend, family friend, whom I saw and knew ever since my early childhood. In other words, I knew him since my early childhood, though I had never dared to discuss politics or any social issue with him. There is a strong longing in me to interact with him in my individual capacity. It's a situation in which he had been coming to our home, but never did I dare as a child to discuss with him on an individual basis, on an independent basis. For the first time in 1982, I met him independently as a young college boy. This was in the town Sambalpur, where I had been studying my undergraduation. I had I heard from somebody that Kishanji had been in Sambalpur town. I rushed from the college hostel to meet him. After the exchange of pleasantries, he asked, "How are you?" All?" And then his next question was, "How is Hema Babu?" Hema Babu was my father, Hemachandra Acharya. If we look at, it was a very general question, but it was sufficient to get me attracted to him. Then Kishanji was a very well-known leader all over the country, was known to each and everyone, at least in the Sambalpur region. I was at the terminal stage of my adolescence as a 19-year-old boy. Like all youths of my age, I was in search of an identity, striving for my independent identity. There was a strong current within me, a feeling that the other person must recognize me as an independent and individual identity, not as somebody's son or relative. If Kishanji had asked me then, "How is your father?" or had patted me on my back as his friend's son, or had given some sermon to focus on my studies to become something in life, probably I would have taken him or taken it as a very normal thing, nothing unusual, because that is how generally a young person is treated by the elders. Even today, that is what we do. The moment we meet a friend's son, then we say, "How is your father? Please study, concentrate on your studies, like your father," like that. But here was Kishanji, who was very different. His questions gave me the confidence that he wants to know me as an independent individual. I felt his interaction is also going to be on that line. This I found to be unique in his personality. He recognized every person as an independent individual with innate potentials, never ignorable or dispensable or avoidable. When I knew him more and more, he would always introduce me to others, to other friends, never as his friend's son, only as his friend. This in him had mesmerized me. In that first meeting, we had a one-to-one interaction on many issues. As an independent person, I was talking to him, not as my father's son or not as a family friend, but as if, say, I am also interested in politics, and in my individual capacity, I was interacting with him. I was very naive in my understanding of social and political issues, but never did he give me that feeling that I was too immature to discuss with a veteran like him. Never did I feel that he considered my questions related to society and politics to be of very stupid nature. Okay, you are too small to ask these questions. Keep quiet. Never did he say like that. I was enthralled with the kind of fearlessness he had generated in me. When I asked him, what is the difference between the communist and socialist? His simple and uncomplicated answer I remember even now very distinctly. He said, there is not much difference. Both are committed to establish an exploitation-less, equitable, non-discriminatory, and just society. Both the socialists and the communists are important for the society because the social difference, the economic difference between the people are growing today, day by day. However, they follow a foreign model. The communists follow a foreign model to achieve this goal, and we socialists feel it can be possible through a native Gandhian model. In the later days when I grew up, I learned from the books that the difference between the socialists and the communists was not that simple. However, looking at my knowledge level and age then, probably that was the best possible answer, which hinted at his tilt for an inclusive approach in politics. Kishan Babu sincerely believed the non-socialist democratic and progressive forces, including the Indian communists, were not discardable just because they adopt a different model, different from the socialist or the say model which Kishan Babu had been preaching or talking about. Their goal and sincerity are important. That is why throughout his life he tried for a broadest possible alliance among all the progressive and democratic forces. Today, we find the lack of such an alliance is the prime cause of the marginalization of the democratic and progressive forces and the rise of rightist forces in the country. However, he never forgot to highlight the fundamental difference between the two, the communist and the socialist. Probably when I was interacting with him for the first time then, probably he imagined that as a young boy of my age, I would never be, say, knowingly tilt towards a foreign model for establishing a socialist society in the homeland. That was the message that he wanted to give. That communists and socialists say they are one, but also they have little difference. And the difference is so sharp, so fundamental that a young boy like you would definitely not like to have that, not have that tilt towards a foreign model for establishing a socialist society. The interaction was seminal for me, the interaction which I am referring to with Kishanji, because it led to my natural tilt and conversion to the socialist ideas. I felt immensely elated, realized that something I have got, which my friends in the hostel, college hostel, should also partake. They should also get this realization, this understanding. How could they be deprived of such a unique experience of meeting and interacting with a great leader like Kishan Pattanayak? I must take Kishan Pattanayak to their midst. Probably there was also a veiled desire in me to acquire an elevated position among my friends. I thought that by, say, projecting Kishan Pattanayak, by bringing Kishan Pattanayak to the hostel, so I'll get an elevated position among the friends. I don't consider that to be an undesire, say, unnatural desire at that stage. All young people or teenager people, they think like that. On my own, I invited him to our hostel and speak to the students' mass the next evening. I said, you please come to our hostel tomorrow evening. I'll organize a meeting and you speak to my friends. His response was very cryptic to me at the moment. He said, better you invite your friends who you think would be interested to interact. Avoid large public meetings. I do not know why he said like that, but later on I understood that he always insisted on these small meetings, personal one-to-one meeting in which the other person would be fearless to ask questions, because in large meetings that does not happen, and in the process you hear a beautiful lecture and also after that you forget. But I said that, says I was so over enthusiastic that I said that on my friend's behalf I am saying everybody will be interested. How can we deprive others? You please agree and I'll arrange the meeting. On and finally he agreed because I insisted. Probably he agreed. With same zeal and jest, I rushed back to the hostel for making the arrangement for the proposed meeting. But in moments time, I realized that it was not that easy to organize a meeting. The hostel superintendent, who was a senior faculty of the say college where I had been studying, GM College, Sambalpur, he was reluctant to give us permission for any such political meeting. Political meeting not possible. I know Kishen Pattanayak, he said. He is a very learned man, that I know, but he is a political person, political leader. Further, he is not from the political party, no, ruling party, the party which has been ruling in Odisha. So inviting him would be like inviting a problem. The principal will ask for explanation. It is not possible to invite Kishen Pattanayak to the hostel premises to speak to the say, students' mass. He conveyed to me in very firm language, very firmly. I tried to convince him, but very emphatically he finally said no. Barring a few academic institutions, the situation remains the same throughout the country even today. Today, even when we think of organizing a debate, a discussion, say of political persons, we invite political leaders to the hostel or the college premises, then it becomes a big problem unless they are from the ruling political party. I was very sad. It was like a heaven falling upon me. I could not sleep that night. Now my major worry was how to convey and concede that I am unable to organize the said meeting. What a shame on me and my burning adolescence, striving for an identity of its own. Further, if I did not inform Kishanji that the meeting is cancelled, that will be a far bigger folly. How can I show my face to him? When he would convey the whole thing, including that I could not inform him about the cancellation of the meeting to my father, to other people who were known to him, what indignity and ignominy will I have? Why was I inviting him for a meeting without taking the necessary permission from the hostel superintendent? I was cursing myself. It was like a self-inflicted injury to kill my exploration for an independent identity. Finally, I decided to meet Kishan Babu. There was no way out. I have to inform him that I could not arrange the meeting, and so that he say whatever he feels about me, let him feel. But I must inform. That was my decision. Tell him the entire incident. I went to him the next morning and informed everything, so from the beginning till the end. He listened to me coolly, smiled a little, never gave any sermon or to restrain me from such misadventure in future. Rather, he interacted with me as he had done the previous day. I felt to him it was a very natural and normal thing. Kishanji never even bothered to ask about it the second time. What said your hostel warden, or how did you approach? These questions he never asked. Just he assumed that we should forget that question. He must have witnessed many such incidents when the teachers proved to be stumbling block in meaningful interactions between the youths, between the the intellectuals and the youths. The feeling that he never held me guilty. Personally, I felt that this feeling that he never held me guilty for the entire incident was a great relief to me. I had saved him, say it had saved me from immeasurable self ignominy. It was a relief that my identity is not, say, still not at stake in his eyes. I thought that now what he would think about me, how would I say, what would he consider me, because I failed to organize a meeting. But when I knew that he never held me responsible for the failure, then again I felt elated. It cautioned me from resorting to bigger misadventure in future. On the other, it got me more attracted to Kishan for his liking for me, despite my immaturity. He never discarded me. Rather, he appreciated me for my sincere efforts, which he never expressed in words. This is my conjecture. I strongly felt here is a person who never bothered for your failure or unsuccess and continued to shower his love and appreciation if you are sincere in your efforts. Kishanji himself was an epitome of such efforts without any hope of immediate success. I have seen him in the elections of 1989 when he was contesting for the last time for the Lok Sabha seat of Sambalpur. He had declined the offer of Biju Patnaik to contest the elections from the safe and secured arena of Janata Dal. The political climate was quite adverse for Kishanji when he contested it independently. The Janata Dal candidate, a former colleague of Kishan Babu, had spread a rumor that Kishan Babu was a Congress agent and was contesting the elections with the sole aim of defeating the Janata Dal candidate. Kishan Babu had taken money from the Congress party. All these rumors had been spreading in Samalpur those days. Kishan Babu had taken money from the Congress party to defeat the Janata Dal. This is such a rumor that nobody would say on believe in normal time, but say it was a bad time for all of us, all the friends of Kishanji and Kishanji himself. Despite that, Kishan Babu campaigned, swallowed the abuse because he considered the election to be a forum for the say dissemination of his thoughts and the idea of alternative politics beyond the purview of the Congress and the Janata Dal. He lost miserably in the elections in 1989, but his harping on the idea of alternative politics never died down. Going back to my first meeting with him, it is his liking for one's sincerity and efforts which got me attracted to his personality and his thoughts. Today, when I look back at the incident after a gap of nearly 40 years, I feel Kishanji, like Gandhiji, had been able to attract many people. Today, if we say ask any all these friends who have been say witnessing this, participating in this meeting, have joined this meeting, they all have their personal say experiences, and say through that we would know that Kishanji had been able to attract many of us to the socialist thoughts, not because of any ideological preaching or sermon showering, but through such personal touch and care. This had had always a greater impact than anything else on a person like me. My first meeting with Kishanji had convinced me sufficiently why my father had quit his government service for the sake of joining the small band of socialists under the leadership of Kishen Pattanayak, a man of impeccable political integrity at a time when politics is seen as a synonym of villainy and foul play. With this, I have several, of course, since my childhood, I had been interacting, I had been meeting, so several incidents, several say reminiscences I have. But I thought within 15 minutes time, say one incident I would explain and say I'll say show how that had attracted me to Kishan Babu's personality and Kishan Babu's thought. Thank you all for say, giving me an opportunity. Thank you, Joshy Jacobji, for organizing this meeting. And future also, say, I hope if such meetings are held, then through this probably we would be able to say speak what Kishan Babu was, what his thoughts were, how he was so sincerely nurturing the young people, say, without giving sermons, without any preaching, without say petting or without such things. Say, he had been a great, always he had been a great source of inspiration to all of us. I remember many of the meetings in which I used to feel that after the meeting I would go and say, it was such a wonderful meeting, it was such a wonderful speech. But he was so natural, say he would never bother for the what is that the brilliant talks or things like that, or never would I gather courage to say that your speech was beautiful or your lecture was beautiful. Always his lectures were beautiful. They were as natural as anything in the nature, as a say bird is beautiful, as water is beautiful, as anything in the nature is beautiful. Like that, he would speak naturally, and that naturality would give him that beauty, or his speech would become very attractive. Thank you all for say giving a patient hearing to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratish Acharya ji. Thank you. And he also paid a good tribute to Kishan ji by recalling his memories from the uh, teenagers and till death. Pratish Acharya ji has stated as Kishanji's speech is beautiful as like anything in the nature. A bird, a stream, water stream, anything in the nature, Kishanji's speech is always beautiful. It's a very great contribution to Pradesh Acharya in this tributing program. Thank you very much, Pradesh Acharya ji. And now Arvind Mohan is speaking. He will, initially I told you, he was a senior journalist in India in Hindi newspapers, various newspapers he worked. Now he will speak on Kishanji. Kishanji, hello. Arvind Mohanji did not join. We are waiting for him a few seconds. Kishen Pattanayak once told, love is the basis of socialism. He did not hesitate to say that very fundamental principle of socialism. He loved where he lived, the people where he lived, the Dalits, Adivasis, OBCs, OBC people, and others, and the poor especially. He loved the farmers. Then he was also called Kishen Pattanayak. Once he told me, because of his work among the farmers. He is the founder of Odisha Rajya Krishak Sanghatan. He is one of the founders of National Alliance of People's Movements. He is the founder of Janandalan Samanya Samadi. All his effort was to come together all the forces which wanted to a change. Among the farmers' organizations, he also played a role to bring together Ranjan Sami, Karnataka Rajya Right Sangha, Sharad Joshi from Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Mahendra Singh Tikayat from UP, Haryana, etc., and Punjab also. He played a very positive role in bringing together. But later on, Sharad Joshi left the conglomeration because he became a supporter of globalization. And again, Kishenji was movements in 1993, 3rd March, there was a huge rally against the Dangal proposals for the GATT agreement, which led to the formation of WTO. The farmers, in the ocean of farmers, led by Nanjut Swami and Tikait, they were not in a position to hold the unity. But Kishenji spoke there also the need of unity. But he also insisted the policy and principles also. Without policy and principles, no politics. This was Kishenji. In his party and before his party's formation also, Samajwadi JanParishad, before his formation also, in Samta Sanghatan and Janandalan Samanya Samadi and NAPM also, he upheld the principles and ideology, policy and ideology. In NAPM, while he was there, on behalf of Samajwadi JanParishad, he made a rule that NGO funded managers may not be the office bearers of the NAPM. Even a loose cooperation, a loose front, there also he tried to uphold the policy, not within his organization only, but he insisted policy, a minimum certain policy, not the maximum policy in his organization. But in the United Front, a minimum, at least a minimum policy and principles are necessary. This was Kishenji. This day, the death anniversary of Kishenji, Samajwadi JanParishad people, our comrades are very happy to present Kishenji as a source of inspiration for the present day, when the farmers are on the streets to fight against the government on their policy to eliminate the farmers' community and rest of the farmers to become slaves. This agitation is actually one of the inspirations is Kishen Pattanayak, because he also had played a very big role in propagating the ideas and principles and politics against this globalization. Ultimately, the explicit farmers, unity, the people came to the streets. For Kishenji did not stand for a single agenda or a partial change. He stood for a comprehensive change, a total change. He played a very good role residing at Patna itself with JP's agitation time. For a total revolution JP started, but it did not fulfill But Kishenji dedicated his life for a total change, even after the JP's death. That's because he did not join any established political parties. He thought that a new and alternative politics of socialism, a socialist movement of new era, is necessary. That's why he formed. He took initiative to form the Samajwadi JanParishad. Now it is seen that Arvind Mohanji is not seen join some of technical problems. I telephoned him, so we have to wind up this Facebook Live program. Thank you all the viewers and those who shared the Facebook Live program. Thank you very much. Now it is over. That Arvind Mohan, hello. It is seen that Arvind Mohan is joined. So he please start his speech. Arvind Mohanji.
I can't see you now.
Hello, Arvind Mohanji. You please start. We were here. Hello. 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 Arvindji. ഹലോ ആണോ എന്നാ ഒന്നുകൂടെ പറഞ്ഞേക്കാം ഒരു കാര്യം കൂടെ ഹലോ ഹലോ ഒരു കാര്യം കൂടെ പറയട്ടെ ആ ഹലോ I did not remember things very much related to Kishenji's life. In the beginning of 1980s, he took initiative and inspired the movement for the protection of Gandhardhan Hills. Hello, Gandhardhan Hills, and also he is the inspiration inspiration behind the Nemgiri movement, a world-renowned movement. Nemgiri, Lingaraj Asadji is the leader of that movement. Kishenji is the inspiration. He also participated directly for that movement, and even hello. Kishenji will be remembered for many things, but Niyamgiri movement also he is remembered. He inspired the Adivasis and Dinglai Asadi to strive on the agitation against the struggle against the multinational corporation Vedanta. So we were waiting for Arvind Mohanji. I don't know what happened to him.